Okay, we'll get started. Thanks for joining me, everyone. My name is Laura Winnie. I am the Humane Educator for DuPage County Services. And today we're going to talk about if you are ready for rabbits. But if you already have rabbits, hopefully this just gives you a little bit more insight onto their needs and care and to make sure that you have happy, healthy buns. So a couple of Zoom housekeeping things. Everyone is currently muted. Please stay that way through the duration. We are recording this to put it on YouTube at a later date, and we don't want any audio interference. So please just keep yourselves muted. If you have questions, go ahead and pop them into the chat box, but I won't be checking the chat until the very end of the presentation, okay? But if at any point you have questions, just feel free to pop it in there. So today we're going to go over getting to know your bun, some basic information, where to find a bun if you're looking to add one to your family, what the environment needs to look like for the bun to be happy and healthy, and very, very important, their diet. So that's something that a lot of people find very tricky, so we've tried to break it down for you. And then last but not least, the fun stuff, training and enrichment for your buns. So I've got some really cool videos to share with you of some of our shelter buns, and then also some that I found just on the internet that really illustrated what you can do with a rabbit. So let's get started. At the very beginning here, I like to just talk about general rabbit information. There's some misconceptions when people buy rabbits. They don't always know what they're getting in for. And just getting some of that general information can help build on your knowledge of rabbit care. We're also going to look at rabbit communication. Yes, rabbits communicate with us. For those who have never experienced a pet rabbit, they can be very communicative. You just have to learn how to speak bunny. So we're going to get you all set and squared away for that. Then we're going to talk about what to expect about having a rabbit in your home. Definitely a lot of the shelter animals that we see surrendered was because of misconceptions on what that pet and owner relationship would look like. So we want to make sure that people are prepared so they don't set their expectations too high and then they're doomed to fail. We want to make sure that you are cognizant of what rabbits are capable of so that you can really experience a deep and loving bond with your rabbit and not set them up for disappointment or anything like that. Now, if you are thinking about bringing a rabbit into your home, we do hope that this will give you a good starting ground, but this is by no means the end all of rabbit information. Each one of these slides could be a presentation all on their own. So definitely reach out, do your research, because there's a lot of information out there. We're just going to cover the basics today. And for those of you who are experienced bunny owners, I hope that there are some tips and tidbits that you get out of here that you can incorporate into your bunny's life just to make everybody happier and healthier in the home. So basic rabbit facts. This one surprises a lot of people. They're not rodents. Yeah, they're cute, they're furry, they burrow underground, but they're not rodents. They are lagomorphs. Okay, so pikas and a couple other animals fall into this category. And one of the reasons people think that they're rodents, besides the fact that they're cute, fuzzy, and furry, is that in pet stores, rabbits are kept along with the rodents, with the hamsters, with the gerbils, with the guinea pigs, but they're very, very different animals. So lagomorphs have 4 incisors, okay? And rodents only have 2 in their upper jaw. They have, lagomorphs have in the front and the top and the bottom. So they need those 4 incisors because they are strictly herbivores, okay? They are not bringing in anything else into their diet, nuts, seeds, anything else. So they need those incisors to tear up that plant matter as it's going in. So absolutely they can use their back molars to grind, but to get it small enough to get into their mouths, they have to use their incisors to rip and tear at that plant food. So another thing that kind of gets people confused is you will see rabbits burrows, right? Not all rabbits burrow all the time. Some only do it seasonally. Some do it for their entire lives as a prey defense against predators. Some do it mostly to protect their young. That's typically what we see in our wild rabbit populations here. This is baby bunny season. So if you're experiencing any happy little bunnies, then you know you probably have a burrow somewhere in your yard. And the good news is that they're not going to stay there their whole life. Bunnies are going to leave their burrow and they're going to go elsewhere, at least the ones that are up here, the eastern cottontail. They typically, when you see baby bunnies, you'll see a few of them, but adult bunnies, we typically only see one at a time mostly, but they are very social animals. And out in the wild, they do live in colonies. You might only see one or two. It's kind of like the lookout, but they do have a social group. It might be a very fluid social group, allowing members to come and leave depending on resource availability, burrow availability, what have you. But they are very social animals. And this is something that you want to keep in mind if you're looking to add a bun to your family. What outlets are they going to have for that social interaction? Because it can be you. That's perfectly fine. You can be their social group, but you need to be able to be there for them if they don't have any other rabbit friends in the family. One thing I did want to mention when we were talking about the digging is this is also something that's very important to understand about rabbits is it's an instinctive behavior, that burrowing, that digging. They have very powerful hind legs that they use to dig with. And it's very important for us as guardians for rabbits to give them a natural outlet for that behavior. It can be something as simple as a telephone book that you put down and let them just scratch and burrow through and just rip to shreds. Perfectly fine. But you want to make sure you provide them something so that they're not choosing their own item in your house to dig and burrow in. Okay, so definitely when we're expressing those natural behaviors, we want to make sure that one, they're not getting punished for it because it's just natural. They're just bunnies being bunnies. And two, that we are providing them positive outlets so that they don't seek out their own, which may not be so great for us. So let's talk about communication. One of the biggest problems we see with bunnies that are surrendered is a miscommunication between the pet guardian and the pet, especially rabbits that are very, very skittish, or they don't like to be touched or handled. Maybe they're territorial or defensive. And these are all signs of miscommunication. All animals will give us cues, and then they resort to those seemingly aggressive behaviors as a last resort. So our job as guardians is to recognize those cues at the beginning so we can adjust our behavior or the environment or the circumstances so that we don't cause our animals distress and they don't feel that they need to run away from us, hide from us, or even some of the more unfortunate behaviors, the lunging, nipping. It's not fun to be nipped by a bunny. And even the swatting, when they swat at you with their front paws, it can be unpleasant. And, you know, you kind of feel rejected. It's not fun, right? You want your pet to enjoy spending time with you. That's why you have one. So we need to make sure that we're understanding their communication style. There are a couple of verbal communication cues that you can look for, but primarily they're going to be nonverbal body language communication. So we'll talk about the verbal first. Teeth grinding. This one's a little confusing because it represents extremes, positive and negative. There's a different pitch and a different rhythm to it depending on if they're showing relaxed contentment or if they're showing agitation and fear. Now, teeth grinding is exactly what it sounds like. It's them rubbing their molars up against each other in the back of their mouth there. And if it's like a low-pitched, rhythmic sound, then that's a sign of contentment. So you may notice them doing that when they're just hanging out. Maybe you're giving them a good brushing and they really like that. And they're just doing that nice, calm, low rhythmic grinding. So that's a sign of contentment. On the other extreme, if they are really agitated or really fearful, it might be really fast, rapid teeth grinding, and that's going to be more high pitched. So a key with some of these verbal communications is checking out the body language to get a better idea of what your bun is trying to tell you. So if you have a bunny in your lap and they're teeth grinding, but you're not sure if it's the happy teeth grinding or this angry, fearful teeth grinding, then you can look at some of the body language that we're going to talk about later. Grunting is exactly what it sounds like, and it is mostly a frustration or warning sign. It's just a deep gurgle grunt. There's no other way to describe that. And it typically is going to be preceding a defensive or aggression action. So you might hear that grunt before they lunge, swat, nip, something like that. So that's them telling us, hey, I don't like what's going on, back off. And a lot of times what these rabbits need is space. So they're giving us these signs to let us know I'm not comfortable and I need you to help me be more comfortable by just leaving me alone and letting me acclimate to my situation. A lot of times when our animals are afraid or fearful, we want to reassure them. But the important thing to understand is that we are, especially in the beginning, often the cause of that fear, and hanging out more is not going to rectify that situation. So take a couple steps back. Does your bunny relax, or is it still reacting to something else in the environment? So understanding that by removing yourself may be the best thing to do for your bunny until they are more comfortable is a hard lesson to learn, but one your bun will really appreciate. Now, the last verbal communication thing I want to talk about is a scream, and hopefully no one ever has to hear it. It is a heartbreaking sound, and it does sound like an infant screaming. It's very high pitched, and it is typically a sign of extreme distress. Either there is a predator or something, or they are in an intense amount of pain and they need to be seen by a veterinarian immediately. So in the home, if you have cats or dogs in the home, or even children who maybe don't know boundary information as well, you might hear a bunny scream if they're being mishandled or they feel super, super threatened. So that's a time to back away and figure out, how can we make this bun feel more comfortable? What can we do? Maybe we need to provide a safer enclosure for them. Maybe we need to talk about boundaries with our children, things like that. Now, to avoid getting these unfortunate sounds, it's going to be important to look for the body language that we talked about. And what's great is bunnies have a very visual way of showing us how they're feeling. Looking at the ears. There are all these different ear positions that you can extrapolate how your bunny is feeling. So I've got this great guide here from the Rabbit House that you can look at. So a bunny that's interested in its environment, it's just like, okay, well, something new is happening. It's going to have its ears erect and pointed forward. Now we'll talk about this a little bit later. It's a little harder for our lop-eared fellows, but we do have an example that you can look at for the different ear types. So for our erect ears, pointed forward, and they're just trying to figure out what's going on, okay? Now, a bunny that has gone from curious to alert means that they're not comfortable with what's going on, and they're mostly trying to figure out their flight response, right? Like, okay, is this something that I need to run away from? They're prey animals. Typically, that's going to be their number one defensive move, is to get away as fast as they can. So an alert bunny is going to have their ears completely out because they want to have like surround sound going on. They want to know what's going on in all directions. So they have their ears pointed outwards. And typically you're going to see they're frozen in that position because they are trying, one, to be as still as possible so as not to draw attention to themselves, and two, to focus all of their energy into what they're hearing. Now, a more relaxed bunny is going to have relaxed ears. So kind of back on the head, laying back a little bit, might be turned out, just listening to the sounds around, but they're not super concerned about what is happening in their environments. A nervous or aggressive bunny is going to have those ears tilted back. Remember, they are a prey animal. One of their defenses is to appear as small as possible, basically trying to become invisible in the space. And having huge radar antennas on top of their head to give away their location, not super great. So they're going to have their ears more back and down, but they're still going to be up enough to take in sound. So they're trying to appear small, but they're still going to be trying to take in information with their ears to figure out what they need to do. Now, if your bun is, this is the best position you can see. If your bun is super relaxed or they're sleepy, there's nothing cuter than a sleepy bunny. Their ears are all the way relaxed. They're down. They're not worried about taking in information because they are so chill with their environment. They're ready for a nap. Maybe they just did a binky all over the place, which we'll talk about in a second, and they're super tired and it's nap time. So that is what we want to see. Now, keep in mind when you're bringing in a rabbit into your home, typically what you're going to see first is the alert, because it's a brand new situation, and that's okay. It's okay for them to take a beat and figure out their environment and figure out what's safe, and before they can get into that curious, relaxed, and then completely relaxed position, okay? So you might see those nervous ears, you might see those alert ears at first for a couple days until they figure out that the routine is safe, that this is a good place to be, that there are no surprises. Bunnies are prey animals again. They don't like surprises. Surprises in the wild are not good for a bunny, okay? So it's okay to see those body postures in the first couple days. If you are continually seeing that as you go, then that means something is bothering them in the environment, and we need to investigate what that is. Now, they also communicate with body posture, not just the ears, but their whole bodies, moving their entire bodies. And they're just some really cute things that bunnies do. I didn't list them all, but I listed some of the more common ones. The binky is just a pure expression of joy. So that's something that you're going to see. The bunny is hopping around and they just get so excited. They're just so full of joy that they pop their back legs out a little bit. Now, some do it like super flary and with a lot of spice and flavor to it. And some bunnies are a little bit more subtle, but it's just, they're so happy that they don't know any other way to express it than doing zoomies. That's basically what it is. It's the rabbit equivalent of puppy zoomies, okay? Another great body posture to see is the bunny flop. This is exactly what it sounds like. Your bunny is sleepy, your bunny is relaxed, and it stretches out. And there's typically a routine to this. They'll stretch their front paws out, then their back paws all the way back, and then over on the side. And it's just very comical and super adorable. And that means that your rabbit is completely content and relaxed in the space. If you're looking at a bun and it's laying down and its back feet are still tucked up underneath it, they're still not quite to that fully relaxed position because they want to make sure that they can move if they need to. So as a bunny owner, what we want to see is those hind legs especially stretched out. Even if you don't get the full dramatic bunny flap, having those back legs stretched out show it's comfortable, it doesn't feel threatened, it doesn't feel like it's going to need to move at any moment or it needs to be on the ready. So that's a good thing to see as well, just those back legs stretched out. Chinning is exactly what it sounds like. They're going to take their chin and rub it against different objects. Could be materials, could be other animals, could be you. And they are scent marking with that. So they are taking their chin and leaving their scent by rubbing it on different items. And this is something that is a holdover from being out in the wild. It's a way to mark their territory, but specifically it's a way to mark their safe spaces. So it's not necessarily that they're, claiming you because they're territorial animals. They're claiming you because they're like, oh, well, this is safe and nice, and I like this, and I like this, and I like this. And it just helps them recognize those things in the future. And if you get chinned by a bunny, they're just claiming you as one of the family. They're like, ah, oh, this is my friend. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to give you my scent so that I always know that you're my friend. So that is like the highest of bunny compliments right there, if you get a little bit of chin action from them. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, instead of the really fun, cute stuff that we want to see, there is thumping. And thumping is exactly what it sounds like, but it comes out of a warning. It is a frustrated bunny trying to tell you to back off. And they take typically their back legs, they're very strong back legs, and they thump really, really loud on a surface to just send a message, hey, back up. I am not happy. So I do have some videos we can show you here. So let's do the not so fun one first. Let's look at the thump. And I mentioned that we would talk about the posture of a lop-eared rabbit. So you can tell, even though the ears are flopped, look at how tense they are. And they're all the way back. And the hand came out, not happy, turned away, thump. Thump again. And now you can see this bunny feels like it has no recourse. So it is just completely running away. I actually feel very sorry for this bunny because it was giving warnings. Its posture, it was very tense. You saw from the beginning, the hind legs were tucked underneath it. Let's go back and look at the beginning. Right, this is a bunny that is poised to move because it does not feel comfortable. And look at the way it's holding its ears back against the head. So even though they're low ears, we can't necessarily always tell the subtle differences. This one is pretty easy because they're holding their ears very stiffly and towards the back of the head. So that is something we do not want to see in our bunnies. And if they're giving us this thumping behavior, we need to reevaluate what we're doing, because luckily this bunny made a more positive choice. It just chose to run away. It chose not to interact. Could have easily swatted or nipped or done something like that. And if this filmer, this person who is videotaping their pet bunny, continues behavior like this, they're just going to break the bond that they have with their bunny, and they're not going to have a positive relationship with them. So now that we've talked about the sad video, let's look at the happy video. So this is actually Tater, one of our past adoptable rabbits. He was in a foster home, and his binky's a little subtle, but you can see just a little kick out of the back feet as he runs around. And he's just super excited to be in this space. He's a very happy bunny. And he's like, okay, oh, now it's gonna break. Oh my gosh, no. And we run and we go find our person. So just a very, very happy bunny trying to express joy in the best way and sharing that joy with the foster mom, which is just so great. So definitely, if you are seeing binkies with your bunny, then you are doing a great job as a rabbit guardian, because there's just no better way for them to show you how they feel than the binkies. Okay. Now, what about rabbits as pets? They are the third most common pet, and they are very popular for lots of different reasons. One, they are stinking adorable. We have lots of bunnies in the shelter, and I was not a bunny person before I started this position. And I got to tell you, it's hard to resist the cuteness. There is just so much cute going on with the bunnies. They are very popular for their small size. On average, bunny as an adult is only going to be about 6 pounds. Now, that's not including the larger breeds, because they can definitely get larger, but our typical domestic rabbit, about 6 pounds when they're full grown. They're perceived easy care. Now, I said perceived for a reason, because as we will find out later, they're not a beginner pet by any means, even though a lot of times they are marketed that way in pet stores. And that's just what people think about. Oh, we'll get a bunny for our toddler to start them out before we get them a real pet. I got lots of problems with the term real pet when we're talking about bunnies, because they need a lot of care. and they provide a lot of love in return for the right care. So they are definitely a real pet and they deserve to be treated as such. They require a lot of space. We'll talk about that in depth later on. And they can be tricky to care for. So this is not something that you want to hand off to a small child because they are a lot of work. There's a lot to go into caring for a bunny. One, they can be pretty messy. So you need to have someone that's going to be responsible and able to make sure that the spaces are clean that these animals are living in, because otherwise it can cause them a lot of health problems. Now, if you're looking for an animal that is going to let you scoop them up and cuddle them right close to your heart, this may not be the best animal for you because it makes perfect sense when you think about it. Bunnies are prey animals. So out in the wild, they get eaten by a lot of things. It's just the facts of nature. And one of the biggest predators for bunnies are predatory birds. So how do birds get their prey? They swoop in from above, pick them up with talons, and carry them away. So it makes perfect sense that rabbits aren't super thrilled when we reach in as giant animals ourselves, grab them up, and carry them up into the air. That's a prey experience. That's their worst nightmare come to life. And they're not going to be happy about that. And they are going to fight you to get away from that experience, because in their mind, wired in their brain is, I'm gonna die. Okay. So that's not something that they're ever going to super enjoy, but you can train them to tolerate it. You can train them so that they're more comfortable with it. There are a couple bunny oddballs out there that like to be picked up, but they are definitely the exception, not the norm. Prey animals like to be on the ground. So the key to interacting with your bun is to get down on their level. All right. Sit down, let them hop over to you. They will probably hop into your lap once they're comfortable with it, but that's their choice. We're not taking that choice away from them and handling them in a way that makes them uncomfortable. And that's the key there, is building up that trust and letting them make those choices where they feel safe and comfortable. So with all that said, is a rabbit right for you? Well, depends on a lot of different things. Rabbits are pretty sensitive. Again, prey animals. So loud, scary noises are not going to make them feel comfortable, because in the wild, loud, scary noises mean something's trying to eat you or get at you. So a quiet home is going to be a more conducive place for a bunny to relax. If you have a lot of little kiddos or you have a lot of activity in your house, then having somewhere else off the main path where these bunnies can just be bunnies and relax. And then, you go to visit them on a regular basis, or every once in a while, bring them out into the main area where we have fun, constructive time together. That's absolutely possible. Just understanding that, if you have a bunch of kids running through your home every single day, maybe your kids have friends and they come over and your rabbit is in the living room, even if your kids understand the boundaries, are the visitors going to understand the boundaries? And is that going to be super stressful for your animal? So maybe having them someplace where we go to visit, once we know what everybody's comfortable with and we understand how to make our bunny feel comfortable, that might be a better solution. They also prefer a reliable schedule, and they have pretty delicate digestive systems. So getting their food on a regular schedule. Now, I don't mean like exactly to the minute. That's unrealistic and wouldn't happen in the wild either, but a regular schedule. So morning, afternoon, evening, whatever it is, making sure that they're being provided that on the same schedule so that they're not going too short or too long between meals will help them have a healthier digestive system. And like most animals, a routine is going to make them feel comfortable. Very few animals like surprises. Not even a lot of humans like surprises, okay? It's something that we'll tolerate for the benefit of our family, but I am one of those people that if someone threw me a surprise party, I would tell everybody I enjoyed it and I loved it, but in the inside, I'm going, oh my God, I was not prepared for this. Okay, definitely our rabbits are not going to be able to prepare themselves for surprises. They do not have that ability. So reliable schedule, nice, good routine where they know what's coming is going to make them feel a lot more comfortable. And they are social animals. So making sure that they get all the attention that they need. 3 to 4 hours of exercise a day is recommended. Now, that doesn't mean that you are hands-on with the bunny 4 hours a day. No, that's not what that means. But that means that you are being in the space with them for that amount of time. If they are in smaller enclosures, then you are providing them more room to move around so that they have that freedom and the ability to exercise, to get moving, to explore, to have fun. So thinking about your schedule and your family's schedule, is that going to be feasible? And there is a misconception because bunnies are often kept with those rodents who have very, very short lifespans, that they also have a short lifespan. But bunnies are closer to cats and dogs in terms of their lifespan when in human care. So 8 to 12 years, and I've even heard of bunnies living up to 16 and 18 years old. So it is definitely a time commitment when you're bringing in a bunny to your home. They are also considered an exotic animal, so not all veterinarians can see them. And you definitely want to make sure that you are taking your bunnies in at least once a year for the wellness checkup, and then also being cognizant of any behavior changes, dietary changes, elimination changes, so that you can take them in. So for a cat or a dog, a regular veterinarian, just to get through the door, it's going to be like $40 to $80. For a bunny, specialty vet, it's going to be a little bit more. So just to get through the door, we're talking maybe $80 to $120. So that is just something to keep in mind. Can you financially care for this bunny if something goes wrong, or just even those regular exams that they need once a year to make sure everything's still going well? And in addition to the time that we spend with them for fun, we also have to make sure that we are keeping up with their dietary needs and also just the cleaning. Bunnies can be very messy. They kick, they poop all the time. Like, I'm not gonna lie about that. There's a lot of poop involved. Now, they can be litter box trained. We'll talk about that in a minute, but you still need to be cleaning out that space once a day to make sure that they are in sanitary conditions. Who's going to be responsible for that in your home? What all does that entail? Just lots of things to keep in mind. And along with our social bonding, we want to make sure that when we're not there, that our bunnies have something to do, especially if they are a solo bun. We don't want them to be bored for 20 hours a day. That's not going to be a happy life for them. So making sure that there are opportunities for them to express those natural behaviors, the digging, the chewing, the hiding, the running, the binking, the foraging, all those behaviors that you would see bunnies doing out in the wild, we need to be able to provide methods for them to do in the home. And we do talk about that at the end of the presentation, ways that we can provide those for our animals. So now that hopefully you're still super excited about getting a bunny, and I haven't scared you, because I want everybody to understand realistically what owning a bunny entails. They are great pets. You can form incredible bonds with them, but they are a lot of work. So I hope that didn't deter you. It just prepared you, and you are ready now to look for your new bun. Where do we find your new best friend? Well, I work for animal services. Of course, I'm going to say the adoption option. There's so many shelters and rescues that have rabbits, and it's not something that people think of. We actually had a grocery delivery the other day where a woman showed up, and she was bringing in a donation someone had purchased of 5 bags of lettuce. And I could just see how confused she was. She's like, okay, here's your lettuce. And I was like, oh, for the rabbits. She goes, rabbits, right. Because when most people think about an animal shelter, they think cats and dogs, not normally big on the salad option, right? So definitely check out the shelters and see if they have rabbits available at DuPage County Animal Services. We typically always have at least a few bunnies available. Here are some pictures of ones that we have available right now. You can always just go straight to our website and see which ones. Now we do get pretty much two kinds of bunny intake at our shelter. We have the owner surrenders, and that can happen a few different ways. Maybe they just didn't understand the maintenance involved and got overwhelmed and could no longer care for their bunnies. Maybe they were bought as pets for their children, not realizing how long they lived. Children have moved out, no one's available to care or provide social engagement for the bunny anymore. So they need to be brought in. Maybe they bought a pair of bunnies from a pet store. And I don't want to scare you. No, I do. I want to scare you. It happens a lot where a pet store missexes rabbits. So you may be thinking that you are purchasing two females, but a couple months later, you got babies. And if you're not diligent, even just a couple more months later, you're going to have more babies. Okay. They're just doing what bunnies do. They have that reputation for a reason. So sometimes the birds and the bees happens and their family just has way too many rabbits now and they need to surrender them. We also get in rabbits as strays. And this is unfortunate. A lot of time people have the misconception that, oh, well, I don't really want this rabbit anymore, but rabbits live in the wild. I'll just let it go and it can do its bunny thing out in the wild. But because we have bred these rabbits for specific colorings, they can't blend in the way that a native rabbit would be able to. When you think about it, the rabbits you see out in the wild, pretty much brown. That's it. They're not white with black spots or any of these adorable colors we see in our domestic rabbits. Also, they're not immune to diseases that they're going to experience out in the wild. They don't have the instincts to find food. They weren't taught that by wild bunny parents, how to be a wild bunny. So they don't even necessarily have the greatest instincts on hiding and getting away from predators. So that is not a good solution for them. They're not going to have a good outcome. So we pick them up and they come to the shelter and we assess them for their medical needs. And then hopefully we can put them up for adoption or transfer them to a rescue. Now, when you're looking at the adoption option and how it benefits you, because we already know that when you adopt, you save the life of two animals, the one you bring home and then the one that can take its space in the shelter. So we already know how it's benefiting the animals. How does it benefit you to adopt instead of shop? Well, typically adoptable buns are going to be less expensive than going to a breeder or to a pet store. They also will have a lot of stuff already provided at that cheaper price. So they will be spayed and neutered. So you can take a bonded pair of a male and a female and not have to worry about what are you going to do with the bunnies, baby bunnies in a few months. They're also going to be microchipped. So if something happens and your bunny gets away from you, we can scan it. Owner information's right there. We can get your bunny back to you. And they've also had a full medical workup to look for any problems, to look for any diseases that they may have contracted or any genetic conditions to look for. So definitely a lot of benefits from adopting. Now, going to a reputable breeder is another option. And most important thing I can say about looking at a breeder is you want to be able to see where these bunnies are kept, to see the medical records for these bunnies. Typically, breeders, rescues, shelters are going to require an application because they don't want these bunnies to be homeless again in a couple months, okay? So when you're looking for breeders, be a little wary of those that are like, sure, here, come get your bun, and they don't need any information from you except your money. That's probably not the best situation. And unfortunately, that's what we see a lot in our pet stores. So please, 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 I'm begging you, we want to say no to buying any pets from a pet store, because even our smaller mammals, even our guinea pigs and gerbils and all of those animals, they are coming from commercial breeders that keep the parents in pretty inhumane conditions. Over here on the right, you can see that this is a commercial rabbit breeding facility. These rabbits live in very small cages with mesh wiring on the bottom, so it's easier to clean, but very, very hard on their feet and on their backs. This is just not a humane condition for rabbits to come from. It also breeds disease as well. So this is not a healthy environment for these animals to come from. Now, luckily, we're seeing fewer and fewer pet stores doing this, and more people are referring to rescues and responsible breeders, which is great. But just to get the word out, just because we don't see the conditions doesn't mean that they're not there. So when we're looking at these breeders, you definitely want to see the conditions that your bunny is coming from, because it'll, one, give you a clue on the quality of life for the bunnies that are staying there, and two, it'll give you an idea of the quality of health on the bunny that you're bringing home. Okay, so let's talk about the perfect setup for your bun. We know a little bit about them, we still like them, awesome, and we want to find out, okay, where will they live? So looking at this slide, I want to live with this person because this is probably the coolest bunny setup I have ever seen. These people are awesome, and I want them to adopt me because I can't even imagine what the accommodations for them are. This is perfect. It's got lots of different textures, hidey holes, levels, all sorts of different things for the bunny to enjoy. I definitely couldn't provide this level of awesomeness for my pets, but it's pretty awesome. So I hope my pets don't see this. They would be super jealous. So let's talk about indoors or outdoors, because this is something that a lot of people, when they talk to me, they're like, oh, well, when I had rabbits as a kid, they stayed outside. I was just having a conversation with my father the other day, and he said, oh, I built a rabbit hutch that lived in the backyard. Do you want me to build you something like that? And I was like, no, because we've learned more and more about the best conditions for rabbits. And while outdoor has some great perceived benefits, doesn't have the mess in your household, I get that. There's also less risk for an allergic reaction than having an animal inside the house if they're outside the house. But the dangers definitely outweigh those benefits. So outdoor rabbits aren't going to live as long. They're just not. Their quality of life is much, much less than a bunny that's living indoors. So we talked about 8 to 12 years for an indoor rabbit. Usually for an outdoor rabbit, you're looking at 5 years. And that's not even like a good 5 years, because there's lots of complications that they can suffer living outside. It is very difficult to predator-proof hutches. No matter what you do, animals are pretty smart. Raccoons, foxes, coyotes, even stray cats and dogs, they're going to work at it. And even if they don't get into the hutch, their presence is going to severely stress out your bun. It's just going to be a poor quality of life for your rabbit if they are stressed out all the time and there's a predator right there and they can't even get away from it. Think about that. They're trapped in that situation. They're trapped in that hutch, fearing for their life. It's a horror movie, basically, is what it is. Now, just like we can't prevent 100% from predators getting into a hutch, we can't 100% guarantee that the rabbits won't be able to get out. So rabbits who live in outdoor hutches tend to be a little bit more bored, right? Need to be looking for stuff to do. And one of those things is going to be to try to escape. So, and especially if you're not outdoors all the time, which I would assume you're not even going to know when your bunny goes missing right away. So it may be several hours, if not the next day, before you even realize that your rabbit is gone. You can see this rabbit hutch has trays on the second level to pull out for easy cleaning. And yeah, it absolutely would be easier to clean. But the way they do that is they have mesh on the bottom, and that splays out their feet. It can cause arthritis, back problems. It's just a very uncomfortable thing to do. Imagine us walking on wire grating in our bare feet all day, would not be pleasant. Also, they are exposed to heat and cold, and especially bunnies can be very sensitive to changes in temperature, so it's not going to be a pleasant experience for them. Also, if you have purchased a bunny specifically for your child and the child is not around that bunny very often, it's not going to create the bond that an indoor bunny would. So it might be harder for the child to have a continued interest, and especially a continued interest in their care and in their well-being. So these are all good reasons why definitely recommendation is to have these buns indoors. So indoors, what are we looking at? A pen or a cage? Well, a pen has a lot more space, so it can fit everything your bunny needs. All right. Pens tend to be a little bit cheaper for the amount of space that they provide for your bunny. More room for the bunny to explore, get their exercise out. And if you have an exercise pen, it's mostly made up of these panels like you can see here in this picture. So it can be adjusted to whatever space you need it to go into. It's not a set space. They do have a cage here in the exercise pen as an additional area for the bunny to go, which is nice. But you can see like that cage, a little on the small side. However, it's got those plastic sides, would be pretty easy to maintain and keep clean, but it's limited. So if they just had that cage, that bunny is not even going to be able to fully stretch out. So definitely having additional space for your bunny to go so it can have that exercise is great. Whether that's when you're home, you're providing your bunny free access to a specific room or a specific area, definitely something to keep in mind if you're going to go the cage route. So let's look at cages and see what our options are. So you want to make sure that you have enough space for your bun to stretch out so it can feel comfortable. You don't want it to be cramped and always huddled in the same position. That can cause problems, medical problems later on. You also want it to have room for a place to potty, a litter box, food, toys, things to keep it entertained, that water, and room to play. So for one bun, minimum 30 by 30 by 24 minimum. And then you're still going to want to have additional space for them to play in at certain times in the day. There are some alternatives to this. If you don't like the idea of an exercise pen, you like the idea of keeping something, safe and squared away, and a large dog crate can be retrofitted to fit your bun and provide different levels. So you can see down here in the bottom picture, they've built different levels just out of cardboard to provide a little bit more room for the bunny to move around in. Or you can get a grid cage. And the great thing about grid cages, for those who are do-it-yourselfers, you can configure this any way you want. You can provide all sorts of different enrichment in different levels, different configurations. Really, you're limited only by your imagination with the grid cages because they just snap together and they provide really great flexibility in a smaller amount of space than necessarily an exercise pen, but definitely provides a more enriching environment than just this cage. And if you look at the cage in the picture, you can see it's not even big enough for this rabbit to stretch out in. There are no hidey spaces. They're prey animals. They're going to want to hide. So looking at something like that, I would only use that as a carrying type of situation or as a temporary thing while I'm cleaning out an area. I would never want to have a bun have that be its permanent home if they couldn't have a place to hide. So now what's great about X pens is, again, the versatility and the space. So a 4 foot by 4 foot for a single bun, and this provides their exercise spaces as well. So we don't have to worry as much about having additional space beyond this for our buns to get their exercise in. If you're adding another bun, if you're going to have two, then 4 by 6 is going to be a great option. This is a video of a foster, not through us, through another organization, but you can see she went above and beyond for her foster bun here. This is a huge space. She's provided not only a couple of Heidi's here in the cardboard thing, but also provided blankets over the top. You can see she's got lots of scratching areas, toys, things to do. She's provided different textures for the bunny to enjoy. These blankets and towels are going to be great for cleaning. And then over there is the litter box, and we've got water accessible as well as food. So that is going to be one happy bun. That's a super awesome space to have available. Now, regardless of whether you're choosing the cage, dog crate, exercise pen, whatever, you want to make sure that you have appropriate bedding, because bunnies will chew on everything. And you want to make sure that what you have is non-toxic and is going to be okay for them to chew on. You don't want anything that's going to cause them problems. So like wood shavings and wood chips very often are chemically treated and can make our bunnies sick and even impact their digestion. So Carefresh is a specialty brand that we use at the shelter. We also just use newspapers, towels, blankets, rugs, things like that. So lots of different options. Just keep in mind that they're gonna chew on it. So the whole setup, lots of spaces here. We got our litter box, we got our Heidi places, we've got food areas, toys, all sorts of different levels, and the one over here on the right. So this is what we want to see. We want to see lots of opportunities for enrichment, for hiding, for expressing those natural behaviors. So we're going to breeze through the healthy diet real quick. I wish I had more time to spend on this because it's a presentation on its own. They have a very complex diet, and you're going to see two types of droppings with rabbits. You may not always see the secotropes, okay? That's a type of waste that the bunny then re-ingests. And I know that sounds super disgusting, but it is packed full of nutrients. Think about it like a cow chewing its cud, okay? It's partly digested to get as much of the nutrients into a smallest space as possible. So instead of regurgitating it like a cow, it just passes all the way through the bunny, and then they eat it and get, bam, all those nutrients right in this tiny little squishy little package. Chances are you won't even ever see these because the bunnies know what they're for and they clean it up for you because that's what they do. So mostly you're going to be seeing the round, hard fecal pellets, and that's good. That's a healthy dropping for a bunny to leave. If you're seeing diarrhea or too many of the squishy things, then you want to look to see what you're feeding your bun, because we want to make sure that 80% of their diet is going to be hay, something like Timothy hay. Alfalfa hay is a little much for them. Can be given, just a little bit as a snack, but it's much too rich for it to be a part of their regular diet. And the pellets, they love the pellets, but they need to be a very small portion. Green veggies, occasional fruits, and other veggies can be added, but we want to avoid anything that's super high in fat or just not going to be part of their regular diet. So yogurt drops, you're never going to see a bunny looking for a thing of milk, okay? They're not going to be interested in any dairy products. So that is definitely much too rich, much too fattening for them. Same thing with bread and crackers. It can cause impactions in their digestive system and cause a lot of issues. Iceberg lettuce doesn't really have a whole lot of nutritional value even for humans, so we definitely want to avoid that. And there are all sorts of charts out there that you can find to show you the best and the greatest bang for your nutritional buck that you can find for your rabbit's diet. I do want to give you a cautionary tale. We did have Fat Jack come through. He had been overfed. He didn't get enough exercise, and he actually suffered permanent structural damage to his skeleton because of his weight. Chubby bunnies are cute, I get it, but it's not worth it. They can have super bad arthritis. Their legs shape actually splays out so they can't move around as easily. It can cause lots of digestive issues, liver problems, skin problems, urine scald. If they get too chubby that they can't reach around to clean themselves, when they urinate, it can actually burn their skin. Rabbits are typically clean animals. They keep themselves groomed very well, but if they're too fat to reach, that's when you're going to have problems. The same with the fecal caps. You can get something that actually plugs up the system entirely. So we definitely want to avoid that. Now, I did save the best for last, training and enrichment. You can 100% train your bunny. So here we have a woman doing some clicker training with her bunny. You can see she holds out a target for the bunny to touch. She clicks or marks, says yes, and gives a treat. And this is just really fun. It can also help you move a rabbit, it may be into a carrier or just doing different activities by starting with that. And I mean, who doesn't think that's adorable? That's great. You can train them to be litter box trained. It's a lot easier with an animal that's been spayed and neutered because males, unneutered males, spray to mark their territory, and they can spray multiple feet. So just another reason to spay and neuter, aside from the overpopulation problem, is it generally makes the living space a lot easier to clean and a lot more pleasant smelling. So you can line the litter box with paper and then put their hay on top of that because they tend to poop while they're eating. It's a one-way system. Things are going in, things are coming out. Now, that's okay if there's fecal matter near their food, as long as we're changing it out every day. Okay, so that's something that we do have to monitor, is keeping that litter box clean every single day. Now, there is a lot of stuff that we can do with our bunnies, even when we're not around. So providing them mental enrichment, engaging their brains is going to be super important. So training, those food puzzles, even massaging our bunnies, providing music for them to listen to. It's going to decrease abnormal behaviors. And also it's going to help them express those natural behaviors in a good way. So here's an easy foraging activity you can do with your buns. Cut up a toilet paper tube into little rings, put the rings together and put some treats inside, and they have to roll it around or even chew through the paper to get to their treat. Just a nice little fun foraging activity where if you had pellets on the ground, it'd be gone in a few minutes. This activity is going to take them longer and engage them more. Now we do have a couple of really cute videos to end the night. If anybody has questions, go ahead and pop them into the chat now while we watch these videos, because this is our final thing for the day because it's adorable. So this is foster bun Yara. She is playing with some plastic children's stacking cups. A little word of caution on plastic. You want to make sure you're monitoring your bun when they're using it because they will chew and it's a potential for them to ingest it. So you never want to leave just plastic things in their environment, and that goes for cords, remote controls, all those things. But we had pellets inside the stacking cups and Yara had to figure out how to get to the pellets, and you can see she totally mastered it. And then here we have this cute little bun. We provided a nice little foraging activity. It's just a cardboard egg carton and there's food inside. So this bunny had to figure out how to open it and nailed it. So just something fun for them to do. And then at the end, since this is cardboard, she could just rip it to shreds. So even more fun than just getting food to eat. Now we do have a couple of upcoming webinars. They're all listed on our website. I do hope to see you there. Next week, we're going to talk about how can we be humane and compassionate for animals all over the world, not just the ones in our homes and in our backyards. Also, as summer approaches, a lot of people are looking at those cute, adorable quarter-sized red-eared sliders. So we'll talk about what you need to have in your home to prepare for those if you're interested. And then how can we humanely coexist with the wildlife in Chicago? They belong here, but we don't always want them right by us, right? So how can we deal with issues humanely and avoid real conflicts? So join us for Our Wild Neighbors. That's going to be July 8th. All right, and if at any point you guys have questions, feel free to email me or give us a call at the shelter. That's what we're there for. So you can reach me at humane.education@dupageco.org. Anytime if you guys have questions, I'm always happy to answer. So great questions. What do we recommend for transporting a newly adopted bunny from the shelter? There are a couple different options. At the shelter, we use a cardboard box. And what's great about using that cardboard box is then you can even just cut a little hole in the side after you get home. And that's going to be a hidey place for the bunny to go to. You can also just use carriers like you would with other small animals like a cat or a small dog, just a typical pet carrier. I would definitely put some sort of bedding in there so that they're not sliding around. And you just want to be mindful of how you're carrying it. One hand on the handle, one hand stabilizing it underneath so that they are not slipping and sliding and feeling insecure, okay? And what can we give our animals to dig besides a phone book? Excellent question. So believe it or not, scratching pads that they have commercially for cats are great for rabbits as well. You can even take just strips of cardboard and put them in like a shoebox lid so that they're nice and tight. That will give them something that they can scratch up and dig. There are also options like putting crinkled newspaper into a larger box. Maybe it has food at the bottom so that they have to dig through the newspaper to get to the pellets or the treats underneath. There's always lots of options there. Even blankets that you don't really care how they look at the end of it, having those blankets available for them to nest and fluff and move around are going to be great options. Now, introducing your bun to your dog is a huge conversation. I don't know a ton about it, so I'll let you know what I do know, and then I'm probably going to have to follow up with you after I talk to the care team because they are the ones that facilitate that with adoptions. The main thing I can tell you is you're going to need to go slow and you're going to need to pay attention to body language. So when you are introducing any two animals, you don't want to just let them come face to face, right? Because that's where we have a potential for disaster. So instead, having contained areas where they can smell each other, where they know where each other is, but on separate spaces in the living room. So maybe having your dog behind a gate and your bunny in its pen a little close to the gate. Read the reactions. Is the dog super intensive? Does your dog have a very high prey drive? I have beagles. I'm not sure I would ever feel comfortable introducing my dogs to a bunny because genetically that's what beagles are supposed to hunt down and kill. And just based on what I've seen, that's going to be a huge issue if I ever wanted to add a bunny to my home. So it's going to rely a lot on you reading the body signals, not just from the bunny to make sure that the bunny is comfortable, but also from the dog. Also providing ways for them to get used to each other's smell. So you say that you're going to have your bunny in its own room, removing the bunny and then letting your dog sniff and having the bunny somewhere where the dog typically is, just so that they can get used to each other's scent. And always, 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 when these interactions are going well, providing lots of treats. Associating those smells, associating that relationship with good things for your bunnies, maybe that's when you provide their little bit of fruit for their week, all right, is when they're in proximity to the dog, just to build up that positive association in their brains with those animals. But like I said, I will follow up with the rest of the care team because I'm not sure if they have additional advice for that as well. All right, everyone, I think that was the last question. Oh, we got one more. So cleaning up rabbit droppings on a daily basis, what are some recommended methods? Yeah, a dustpan and broom is going to be fine. At the shelter, we have blankets and towels that we lay down that we then pick up, brush off into the trash can, and then wash. So we have just a stack that we can go through because it's not just going to be the droppings, it's also going to be the urine as well. My fear with a waterproof pad is those typically have plastic, and bunnies will dig and scratch and may ingest some of the plastic. So a better option is probably going to be something that you can wash as opposed to something that is disposable, because you never want to run the risk that your bunny will nibble on something that will make them sick, okay? Rule of thumb is all natural materials all the time, unless you are right there supervising, and then like with those plastic stacking cups or something like that, just so that at no point do they have that opportunity to ingest something that's going to mess up their system. We put just lined newspapers at the bottom of the litter box to soak up that urine, and then we dispose of it. So at the end of the day, everything in that litter box just gets thrown out. The remaining hay, all of the droppings, all of the urine soaked newspaper, we rinse out the litter box, put more stuff in. It's even good if you have multiple litter boxes so that you can immediately put a fresh one down while you're taking care and cleaning the dirty one. That's going to be the best way to go with that. All right, thank you everyone so much. If you have any questions, if they occur to you later on, feel free to email me. Otherwise, thank you for joining, and I hope to see you guys again next week. Have a great day. Thank you.